Welcome to the England Hockey individual consent for participating in hockey under Covid-19 restrictions. Thanks for visiting this form. This is a quick video to try and explain some of the little vagaries around completing it that some people have encountered as they've been going through the process. To start with, you'll see all the information at the top is important information to read. Please make sure you read that along with guidance notes, etc. It's really important that as individuals you are taking responsibility for your health as well as supporting the club in trying to deliver what they are under COVID safe guidance. The first point to look at is question 1. Now this is a slightly odd question in how it reads because this is suggesting that this is for people that are linking to multiple clubs. This is also the option that needs to be referred to if you are wanting to link to non-club organisations, so that will be hockey camps, that will be masters groups, that will be county organisations, which is referred to within the player or talent pathway groups, and anything that's a non-affiliated club. If you just want the simplest form and you have one hockey club that you wish to link to, simply click on 1. That will then take you through to the options relating to the club and the club names, because there's over 800 of them, are listed in 2 different drop-down boxes. The first drop-down box lists clubs, affiliated clubs that start with the letters A to L. The second box lists clubs whose names start M to Z, and also the officiating bodies such as MPUA, TAP, regional HUAs and county HUAs, but that list appears in alphabetical order at the end of the list. The clubs all appear in alphabetical order above that. The other point of note in here is around universities. The only universities that are listed currently are the universities that are playing Saturday League hockey, because other universities affiliate via BUCS and are hence treated as non-affiliated bodies. Most of the universities are listed with the names University of, so University of Durham, University of Nottingham, etc. But there are some universities, a small handful, that are known by different naming conventions, such as Nottingham Trent University Hockey Club. So do check the second list first with the clubs M to Z, because most are listed University of. But if they're not listed there, then you might want to try alternative versions like Nottingham Trent, for example. If we return up to the back at the top of the form and look at question 1 again, the other options you have are if you wish to link to multiple clubs. So you would choose 2, 3, 4 if you are linked to more than one organisation in terms of club hockey. The other thing you might want to do is choose 2, 3 or 4 if you want to connect yourself to something that's a non-affiliated body. So referring back to those masters groups, county squads, etc. Now the key thing to realise here is you don't have to be linked to a club. You can just be linked to a masters organisation. You can just be linked to an HUA. You can just be linked to a county group. But in order to do that, you must press either 2, 3 or 4 at this option. If you are wishing to link to a county squad, these are referred to within the player or talent pathway group, and hence you must select 4, though that does mean that you can leave links to organisations 1, 2 and 3 blank. You don't have to fill in any of those as you work through the process, but in order to get the list that lists the county activities, you must press 4. Equally, if you want to link to performance centres, if you want to link to EDP, if you want to link to NAGS squads, you must press 4, because that will provide the option to link to player or talent pathway groups. If you're simply trying to link to one of the groups that's a non-affiliated body, so not a club side, then select options 2 or 3. If you only want to link to one of those, select 2. If you want to link to 2 of those organisations, then select 3. That will then provide you with the relevant drop-downs as you work through the form to complete the necessary information. Once you've selected from question 1, you then move on to question 2 and question 3. Obviously these are fairly straightforward. require you to fill in your first name and your surname. One point of note at this point is that at the end of this process you will receive a confirmation email. That confirmation email, because we don't want to share all your personal details within it, only lists the first 3 letters of the first name that you've put in here. Apologies to people who only have 3-letter first names. There wasn't much else we could think of to try and limit the amount of text that went into the confirmation email. But when you receive that confirmation email, if your name is Brian, for example, it will simply say that you have entered Bry. That doesn't mean you've entered the information wrong. It's just we're only sending you the first 3 letters. So please don't submit a second form because you think that the name has been recorded incorrectly. So if I take the option to, let's go with 4 organisations because that will provide the most options as we flow through the process. I will then type in a name and then we will move on to the next step. Let's say I want to link to the University of Durham. So within here I will ignore the first question because University of Durham doesn't appear in the club A to L, and I will scroll down, and in here I should find University of Durham Hockey Club. Simple as click on that. That's now sorted. You'll see because I chose 4 earlier, I've now been provided with the options to select additional clubs. If you only select one, this drop down and this drop down won't appear. Equally, if you go into question 5 and choose an option in question 5, then question 6 is automatically taken away as well because you can only choose one option from questions 5 and 6. So I've chosen University of Durham. Now let's say I want to link myself to a coaching academy. So 360 Hockey, there we go, first one I'll pick. I'll drop that one in there. And then I also want to say that I am linked to an umpiring association. So I will scroll down all the way to the bottom where the umpiring associations are. And choose NPOA. Now, the thing to note about the additional clubs drop downs is the additional clubs drop downs you will see are only one drop down box rather than 2. This means we haven't split the groups out, and the only way in which we could get that information into one drop down list is if we've removed some of the club names. So in this first organisation option, which are the 2 drop downs, this is where you will find the smaller clubs. So clubs with affiliation numbers of less than about 100, they only appear in this drop down. The additional clubs that appear in the second and third drop options, they will have all the bigger clubs. So the bigger clubs will appear in all the lists. The smaller clubs will only appear in the first drop down. So if you're linked to a smaller club, choose that in the first set of drop downs and then the bigger club in the second drop down. The coaching agencies only appear in the second and third drop downs. The umpiring associations, they appear in all 3 drop downs, but in the final drop down it's only the regional and national bodies that appear. And this is simply just to do with managing the amount of information that's going into each of these forms to try and make this form flow as smoothly as possible and not take forever. Hopefully that makes sense. We'll finally move on to the final option, which is around player or talent pathway. So this relates to DC and AC activity, county activity, all the various different terminology that's used around this. So let's take as an example that you are a member of Surrey and you're going for trials at DC or AC, or you're already a member of Surrey, DC or AC, then in here you would opt for Surrey County Activity DC or AC. Every county delivery organisation that delivers DC or AC has themselves set up as a county something county activity DC or AC. Each of the performance centres are listed above. So you have the name of the performance centre, so York Performance Centre, Reading Performance Centre, etc. And above that is the NAG squads and the GB EDP squads. Select from those. You are provided with 2 options here. So once you've completed the first one, so let's say for example you play Bury Performance Centre, but you also want to select that you are Norfolk county activity, because you do Norfolk AC as well as Bury Performance Centre, you would select that from the drop down as it appears. This second drop down though will only appear if you complete something in this top drop down. Now if you've gone through all these options and realised that you still have activity to add, please just complete this form and then move on and complete the second form. None of your information is deleted from the first form, it's simply added to in terms of your links. Obviously you need to put the correct contact information in again, but the linkage information doesn't get deleted, it'll just get added to. So there's no need to panic if you've got more linkage. We know that umpires in particular like to be will be associated with multiple organisations. So if they don't have the right options in this form, they just need to submit a second form. The final part of the form that just needs a little bit of explanation is these last few questions around date of birth and who it is that's consenting. So we'll jump to the consenting bit first. So far, all the information to do with linkage is to do with the player themselves, and the details above here that you've entered for the first name and surname is for the player themselves. Our guidance is that under 18s should have the consent provided by their parent or guardian. So that's hopefully what everybody will be doing. We do accept consent from under 18s, but we will need to provide further guidance around that. So please email clubs@englandhockey.co.uk if you've got any queries around that. If you are an under 18 and it's a parent that's providing the consent for you, this is where you would choose that a parent or guardian is providing your consent. When they do that, they will then be provided with an extra box that allows them to say what their name is and who it is that's providing the consent. However, if I'm consenting myself, if I click on that, you'll see that consenting box is removed because the name is assumed to be the person that's consenting for themselves. Going back to the date of birth, this is one that seems to have caused a few problems for people. If you click in here, you'll notice that there's two things you need to do. You need to change the date, the year, and then you need to change the date. So let's say my birthday is the 1st of August, but 1976. So if I click on 1st of August, that automatically jumps away. You'll notice it's still saying the 1st of August 2020 though. So now if I go back in here and choose 1976, and then choose 1st of August, it should be correct. So that's the order in which you probably need to do it. If you change the year first and then change the date, it might not do it correctly, but make sure you change the year first, then click on the date. Then just before you move on, please check that this has recorded the correct date of birth and not with 2020 in, or not with the wrong date of birth. So that's now dealt with. We've said that we're consenting ourselves or the parents consenting. Now we provide contact email, a contact number, mobile preferably, and then we move on to completing the declaration itself. These are all the declarations that we require from the government as part of our process with Public Health England and the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, which is part of our process that we've agreed. You can find further details for participants to be involved in this process by clicking on the link, but otherwise we need you to complete all these declarations. Note that we now have an additional reference to our Code of Ethics and Behaviour because there's additional notes around behaviour and ethics within COVID-19 guidelines. So do please be aware of those. Those are now sanctioned if you misbehave during COVID. Hopefully no one will. And then we finish off the declarations and you press submit. When you press submit, you'll be sent an email to the email address that you've logged above. If you've entered an incorrect email address, you will not get the confirmation email, and so you won't be able to use that confirmation email as evidence to the club, to the organisation you're playing at, that you've submitted this form. That might be okay because actually your name and details will still flow through to their list, but it's just an additional option for you to take this email along that you receive to show that you've completed the participation agreement form. If you fill in the incorrect email address in the entry field above, you won't receive that email. So worth checking that you haven't spelled BT Internet wrong or Hotmail wrong or whatever, because it's worthwhile having that email address. So as repeated from earlier, When that comes through, your first name will only show the first 3 letters of your first name, so please don't think that's incorrect. Other things to be aware of, once you've submitted that data, we will be holding that data for at least a season, so that we've got that information for track and trace purposes, and also to help with providing that information to your club and to your organisation, so they have a list of everybody that's completed the participating agreement list. If you realise when you get that email confirmation through that you've made an error, just submit another form with the corrections on and drop an email to clubs@englandhockey.co.uk saying please delete my first entry, it's incorrect. If you find that any of your details change as time goes on, same process applies. Please just submit a new form and then email us and your COVID officer at your club to let them know that you've changed your details, so that they've got an accurate and up-to-date record, because we don't provide the contact details to them, just a name of who has filled the participation agreement list. So you'll need to do that locally with your COVID officer as well. Any other questions you have, please do email clubs@englandhockey.co.uk. If you're struggling to find an option within the form, it's better to email clubs@englandhockey.co.uk than it is to just start typing in free text and other, because actually we might be able to help you with where it is that you find your club, your organisation name, or it might be in fact that they haven't actually registered with us yet. So there's a number of organisations and camps that haven't registered with us yet because they're non-affiliated bodies, they don't appear on the form, and because they're not on the form, that's because they haven't registered a COVID officer with us, and hence are not conforming with our guidelines. So it might be worth just checking in with us to find out if that organisation actually has or not. That's it for now. Hopefully this has been helpful. Remember, always contact clubs@englandhockey.co.uk if you have any questions. Thank you.